So welcome back to the Financially Simple podcast. We're doing this particular podcast live streaming on YouTube, on Facebook at Justin Goodbread, and through Periscope, which goes into Twitter. For those of you who can't see me at this point, I am joining David Kent, my friend and colleague from the beach of Knoxville, Tennessee. We're on Zoom recording this. I threw my Hawaiian shirt on, and I have the wind blowing through my nice, gorgeous hair behind me with palm trees and water. I wanted to do something a little different because, candidly, friends, I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day. I got to tell you, I feel like Bill Murray, and I was looking on the way to the office this morning trying to find Ned, Ned Flanders, I think his name was. He was the insurance salesman, and Bill punched him in the nose. I wasn't going to do that to Ned, but I really felt like for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, I have been living in this world, David, of every single day it's what's the SBA doing? What's PPP doing? What's EIDL doing? What struggles are business owners having? Man, it just seems like consistently day in, day out like a rut. So I woke up this morning, David, and I said, I'm going to do something different. I'm changing the paradigm. I'm going on this world with my Bahama shirt on. So I don't know if this passes approval, brother. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's great, man. I love it. Makes me want to be on the beach.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, and you're listening to us on the podcast, or if you're watching us on, if you're hearing us, maybe you're not seeing this on a video format, go check us out at YouTube, Financially Simple, and you can see this particular episode we're titling today is 5 things business owners need to know to successfully manage a team. Now, the reason why we wanted to do this particular topic is David Kent and I, as you know, we may remember, David Kent's one of our colleagues here in the company. He works primarily with business owners as it relates to business management strategies. And we've been talking about the idea that we need to focus on a relaunch in our business. And we covered a couple of things. So today, David, we want to dive into these 5 things that business owners need to know about successfully managing a team.
Yep.
As we dive into these points, what I'd love to do is talk about some framework on why this is near and dear to your heart and why I believe you're the perfect person to deal with this topic. So let's give a little background to the listeners, to those watching, on exactly why you can answer these questions.
Sure, Justin. Thank you. I mean, I have managed people, large groups of people, all of my career, both at JCPenney and then at the University of Tennessee for many years. And I've learned a lot of these lessons from performing them myself and from not executing them so well and having to live with the consequences of not making some of these decisions correctly and on time at the right time. So, I've just worked with people and teams all my life and led teams. So I feel really comfortable talking about this.
So you've identified 5 points based on your history, based on your experience. And I think these points are vital. They're vital. In our office right now, we're going through the 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's one of the books that I read many years ago. And it deals a lot with these points that you've even identified from your own real life experiences. And as we go through these points, I think the takeaway that I would have as a business owner, that you would have as a business owner, and that other business owners should have is that we're dealing with a little bit of uncertainty. And when people are dealing with uncertainty, we have the idea of a couple of different mechanisms. We run around like number 1 with a chicken with a head cut off, or like Chicken Little, the sky's falling, and we see the glass half full. That's one personality. Another personality is like the ostrich. They stick their head in the sand. They just don't want to deal with it. It's like that if I ignore it, it goes away. And then there's a type of personality like me, and I know like you and like so many of our business owners who we have the honor and privilege to serve, where we'll grab the bull by the horns and we're going to wrestle him to the ground and make this thing happen, right? We're going to be willing to charge hell with a water pistol, as I say. So I know there's a couple of different ways we can deal with these things. So I'm interested to know, as you go through it, what is it that I need to know as a business owner to successfully manage my team, specifically in these troubling times?
Yeah, sure. So, the first point, Justin, I'd like to make is, and probably one of the most important, is to be flexible. I work with business owners on an everyday basis to create strategic plans for 12, 18 months, 5 years in the future. We work very hard at it. We become very dedicated to our plans, but at the same time, things happen and things change. And if we're so married to the plan that we're unwilling to be flexible with change, like for instance, this current crisis. No one saw this coming, 4 months ago, and here we are. We're having to make, changes in our strategy. And so we have to be flexible with our business. And then the other thing about this is we've got to be flexible with our most important asset, our resource, which is our people. And, sometimes we have to work from home. Sometimes we have to adjust to people's different lifetime settings. But it's all in the name of the team and helping the team be successful. And I've seen many different situations in my career where, I might have a team member that's going through a certain thing. They're a big value to our team, but we have to make an adjustment. And to be flexible is one of the most important things.
In that flexibility though, David, I got to tell you that oftentimes I hear business owners get extremely frustrated whenever the flexibility that's often demanded by the owner is not often received by the team members. So I heard of a business owner this last week that the entire team circled him and they said, basically, look, fire us because we'll make more money than we will this week, what they had on the plate. So the business owner said, no, I'm not going to do that. How is the business owner to react whenever the team is not being flexible? How would you give advice to that business owner?
Well, obviously establishing good communication and relationships during, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but during the course of the business helps you when you get into these situations. But when you get pushback from the employees, you have to remind them that, hey, look, we're looking out into the future and we have to take care of this business. If we don't, then we're not able to take care of ourselves, and help them understand the big picture and why they need to be flexible as a employee and as a part of the team.
So that leads us to our second point that you had here. You said have high expectations and make them crystal clear. I'm one that has very high expectations. You know that about me. I think if you're going to aim for the moon, you might as well go for it and put it all out there. I use often the term big, hairy, audacious goals. You've heard me use BHAG before.
Yep.
Whenever a business owner has high expectations, many times the team members can feel scared. They can feel overwhelmed. They can feel inferior. There's a lot of feelings whenever you put expectations. So how would you define, or how would you give advice to business owners who needs to have high expectations and make them crystal clear?
Buy-in. Get buy-in from the employees. So when we do strategic planning, one of the most important things that we do is involve the team. I meet with business owners. We set the objectives of what we want to try to accomplish. We try to make them achievable, but they're stretch goals. But the real important thing is that the employees are part of the decision so that they are able to know what's expected and know a very clear understanding of what is to be done. And they believe that it's achievable, that they can, and that they're a part of it.
So right now with the relaunching that so many business owners are having to do, we've got business owners, I'm thinking of the entrepreneur doctors and dentists and optometrists and veterinarians and chiropractors who haven't been able to physically meet patients for almost 8 weeks in some cases, right? Maybe longer depending on where they're at in the country. They have this huge amount of demand of people wanting to see them, plus they already have their regular patients. So they could be facing a potential, David, to where now they're having to work instead of, let's say, a 4-day work week, perhaps a 6-day work week, and maybe not a 6-hour work day, but maybe a 10-hour work day. How would you advise these business owners who are relaunching? How would you tell them or advise them to communicate these high expectations in a crystal clear format whenever they're dealing with a lot of uncertainty at this point?
Well, again, I'm a big planner. That's what I do. And I work with the businesses, create a plan. Let's relaunch our business by using a plan. This is how many patients that we have in our backfill, in our pipeline we need to serve. So let's go ahead and create a plan to extend our work weeks out over a 2, 4, 6-week period. So everybody knows up front and in advance what's going to be required to get the business caught up to where you need to be to retain, to regain a normal business.
Okay. So if we move forward, your third point's intriguing to me. I'd like for you to introduce that and explain why you put this as point number 3.
Well, it's ban office politics. And quite honestly, politics in the office can quickly undermine any business. And the most important, probably the best analogy I can use, and we've talked about it several times, is letting the snake into the hen house. It's basically, if you do not address a problem immediately, you're going to allow a problem to grow and grow and grow and become a huge issue within your business. And really playing politics is just a very dangerous game for everybody.
You know, one of my things I love about Dave Ramsey, and I give the guy a lot of slack sometimes because I think he oversteps his bounds as that of a talking head, and I think he borders on advice many times. But one of the things I do love about him is an entre leadership type perspective. So I saw a video clip with him, David, years ago that he said, "This is what I expect." And then he said, I'll never forget it. He's sitting there on the stage and he's talking about his expectations. And the team member that he's referring to said, but I can't. Then he took his hands, if I can do this on this video, and he smacked them together, like the back of his, for those of you in audio format, listen to us on the podcast, whether it's on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're at listening to this, or if you're watching a video, what he did is he took the back of his right hand and slapped it against the inside of his left hand and made a slapping noise. And as he did that, he said, change. And he said, no, this is what I want. Well, I can't change. And I love that basically he was saying as like, look, I'm driving the bus. If you don't want to follow, leave or change. Is that maybe, now Dave's pretty dominant. He's got a very dominant personality, much like mine. Maybe not everybody can do that. How would you have the business owner who can't smack their hands together like that and sure, say change? How would you have them deal with the politics, man? That's a mess is what that is.
Well, I mean, obviously you need to address the issue with whoever's involved. And I think the best way to do that is to address it individually at first. And then try to mediate, get the two people together and try to come to some kind of conclusion if there's a conflict between two employees. But if it's one particular employee, you just have to address it with them and say, hey, look, I can't have this in my business. We need to change the situation. Are you willing to change? If not, then I'm going to need you to leave. If you are willing to change, this is what change looks like. And that's what I require you to do.
Yeah, I know that's something that you often, we've had several clients who've asked you to help them through some of these circumstances. This is one of the things, David, I love about having outside advisors, because many times we can't see our own problems. You and I were just talking about the fact that we would love to get in the pool here soon. We've been, we've not been doing our exercise in the way we would like. Yeah, exactly. And I go back to Michael Phelps in my mindset as I'm looking at the water crashing behind me right here, right? And in Financially Simple Studio, correct? I'm thinking of Michael Phelps, that he had a coach. He was one of the best swimmers of all times, that he had a coach who could tell him his stroke or his kick or his flip was not right on tune. I think that's where a good advisor comes into play. So as we're dealing with this change, you also put here that we want to empower people. People. What does that mean?
Well, obviously, you can't be the best at every single thing that you do. And you've got to identify people's talents and skills. And then you have to allow them to do their job. You have to allow them enough headroom to do their job. I know in my experiences, the times that I've empowered people and given them the resources they needed to be successful, they usually did very well. They grew and developed in their job. But there were times that I tried to micromanage people, and that usually always ends up not being a good thing. You got to tell people what it is you want them to do, give them the resources they need, and then let them go and do it. And then just gently guide them along, as opposed to standing over them and trying to make them accomplish something that maybe they're not cut out to do.
So you've heard me tell this story, and those of you who are long-term listeners of the podcast, you'll recognize this story. It wasn't too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, I was watching Shark Tank. I love to watch Shark Tank. Whenever Miss Emily and I get out of town for our weekend to kind of just unwind, we'll often sit in a hotel room or we'll sit in a cabin somewhere and just literally watch Shark Tank and Home and Garden Studio, where she likes watching people plant gardens and stuff. And anyways, Barbara Condon on Shark Tank, not too long, years ago, she made a statement that forever changed my thinking. It radically changed my thinking. What she said, David, was she said, I used to be the best real estate agent in New York City. She goes, and I made a lot of money. But until I was able to train people how they could be the best real estate agent in New York City, at that point, I became wealthy. Whenever we deal with business owners, David, one of the things that we deal with is the business owner is often the epicenter of the business. And you and I both know whenever the business owner wants to sell the business, me as a certified exit planning advisor and you as a business advisor who's helping our clients in that, the business owner, if they're all things to all people, if they're the CEO, the chief bottle washer, and the cook of the business, they cannot transition that business. So they're going to have to empower people. But my problem that I have, and that you've seen in my own life, can't confession here, right? I feel like I just stepped into the priest confession, okay? But the problem that I have and the problem that so many business owners have is trust. So David, how in the world am I supposed to empower somebody if I don't trust that they can do the job to my expectations?
Well, I mentioned to you the other day, Justin, that, trust is given and loyalty is earned. In this particular situation, I mean, you obviously have to develop a relationship enough with the employee that you feel that they are competent and capable of, and that they're willing. That's another big thing, that they're willing to do it. They could be the most competent person in the world, but they're not willing to do it, then that could be a real problem. I think probably the last element feeds into this best, and that's just simply to be nice to your people. You've got to be on a good, cordial, working relationship. I know the people that I've worked with in my past that probably, it's sad, but to stand out most of my mind are the ones that weren't very nice to me. And, those are the ones that really, stand out as someone that was an obstacle to me being able to grow and develop. On the other hand, some of the people that were very positive and helped me, I grew under and I did really well. And that kind of leads us to the idea of company culture management. Whatever your culture is in your company says a whole lot about who you are as a business owner. And we all set out with a vision that we want to go out and change the world with the business that we started. And so the culture you create, go back to your values and make sure that the values within the company are really being demonstrated by your employees, and be nice to them.
So David, whenever you and I've talked about culture and values in the past, either on the podcast or with clients, the way I describe it with my agrarian type of mind is this: the values are like the little tomato plants that I planted this week in my garden. The culture is like the greenhouse. It's the climate that we're trying to allow those values to grow. That's my simple mindset. So let me ask you this. If we're talking about company culture management, we talked about values last time whenever you were a guest on the podcast. How in the world can I control? See, that's my control. That's my deep personality, right? I'm just being honest. How can I control? How can I modify? How can I enhance? How can the business owner change the culture or enhance the culture to which those values can grow?
Positively.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you got to be positive. If you don't take the high road and you take the low road, it's always going to lead you down a bad path, whether it's with an employee or in your business. So, I mean, being positive, addressing things in a very positive and respectful manner, regardless of the situation, is going to help you through really any employee issue and really any business issue for that matter. Because one thing that I learned a long time ago is you can have the world's best strategy, but culture devours strategy. So as a business owner, it's really your top priority to lead that change. And when you identify it, address it immediately and be positive in the way that you go about it. Because I know the times that I haven't always been positive in my business dealings, it's always come back to bite me. That's just sage advice.
So we just went through 5 very key points that business owners need to know right now with this turmoil that we're dealing with. If I can recap those and let's sign off. So you got to be flexible, man. We've learned that this last 7, 8, 9 weeks, right? As we're recording this mid-April, late April. You have to have high expectations, but you got to make them crystal clear. And I'm a firm believer in setting that bar as high as possible, that it's like, I often say the best fruit is at the end of the vine. And we're going to apples right now. They're starting to come in and the flowers are coming in. I can tell you the sweetest fruit's on the very end, but it's also the hardest to reach. So you got to get it out there, set some high expectations. You got to ban office politics. That's one that I think Dave Ramsey's thoughts on that were brilliant. If you never looked at the clip, Google Dave Ramsey, office politics, or Dave Ramsey change employees. It's a great clip that he does on that. I got to give the guy props. Empower people. That's one that I personally love to do. People often think I'm a micromanager. I don't think I am. I like to give away assignments, say, hey, we're going to go figure it out. Go figure it out. I love seeing people rise. And I think that's the way that we raise our children, even just empower them. And you got to be nice. Now that's, for someone who wears their expression on their face, David, oftentimes it looks like I'm not nice, but I try to be, so being nice is a tough one for me. It is, because I'm pretty direct, but sometimes business owners can be overly nice and not be firm enough. So I love those 5 points there. David, as we kind of sign off on these 5 tips that business owners need to know, if you were to wrap it all into one little point of sage wisdom, like I ask every time we're on the show, what would that be?
Well, every element of what we just discussed goes back to communication. How you communicate to your people, what you communicate to them, what types of things are you trying to get across to your employees in the delivery of it. It's all about communication and relationships with your employees. If you don't relate well within the team, you're not going to have a successful team. It really just is that's the bottom line.
And I'll sign off by saying this, guys. We actually addressed this in our book, The Ultimate Sell. You can check it out on Amazon. You can read it on the podcast, Financially Simple, where I talk about the dynamics of the dream team, the basketball team that I watched whenever I was much, much, much younger, and how they dominated the world stage during the Olympics. It was amazing to watch. And so the reason why we want to deal with this team issue is because if you're going to rock it out as a business owner, if you're going to change your trajectory coming out of this opportunistic time, then now is a time for you to hone in and making sure that team is rock solid. So take these 5 points that we mentioned today. Look, if you need any help and you need some help from David or myself, reach out to us through the Financially Simple portal. You may even go to David Kent at heritagebusinessadvisor.com. That's his email address if you want to reach out to him directly. He's an unbelievable asset. I got to tell you, I'm glad to have him on the team. I'm glad to call him a friend and a colleague. So until next time, look, I realize life is hard. I get it, but life is good. Look, I'm at the beach. I'm at the beach in whatever time it is, even though it's not open. I tried to do something a little different today to bring a smile to your face during this Corona craze that we're dealing with, but life is good. Life can be frustrating. I get it. Dealing with team members is frustrating, but we got to continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Y'all go out and make it a great day.